What's your true life story that nobody will believe? I was declared a divine gift by the monks of St. Catherine's Monastery in Egypt. The monastery was built around the alleged burning bush from the Book of Exodus, and since I was really into religions at the time, I asked the monks some questions about the bush and whether they have any other interesting relics in their monastery. The monks went silent and asked me and my family to follow them down to the gates of the burning bush. They let us see the alleged remnants of the burning bush, even though we are not Orthodox Christians. This is a privilege granted only to high officials in the Orthodox Church, and they said we were the first secular people to ever see the bush. After visiting the bush, the monks gave me some kind of a special blessing where they declared me as that divine gift and a silver ring with Greek writing on it. I was a kid at the time, so I didn't really react to it in an extravagant way, but my mom was dumbfounded for days, since she is a very religious person. Now, at an older age, I'm just wondering if they do this every now and then as a prank, or if they actually saw something special in me. Edit. For the people asking. I still have the ring in my childhood home, but I'm sorry that I can't provide pictures because I live pretty far away. I am not a religious person. My agnosticism grows stronger every year. And no, even though I have what some would call an eidetic memory, it doesn't mean that I can remember what happened on a specific date many years ago. It means that I can memorize pictures, texts, and number chains for a long period of time after seeing them once. I'm still shitty in math, though. My girlfriend is getting an arranged marriage against her will. My 16 girlfriend who is 16 is getting in an arranged marriage. I don't know what to do. We started talking a couple of months back and started loving each other. We started dating and we promised to get married. She is a very good girl who has a good job and studies psychology. She was going to her home country for the first time in her life, apparently for her older uncle who is getting married. Her father paid for everything in the wedding and told her it was tradition to pay for a sibling's marriage. She was very excited, and I was excited for her as well. She got a dress from her father and asked for who it was. Her father got mad at her for asking for who it was and told her everything. She is getting married to her family member, and the reason her father paid for the wedding was because it is her wedding. After she got the news, she called me on the phone and started crying very badly. Shocked is nothing compared to hate I was. I don't know if she is getting married to her uncle who is pretty old or an older cousin, but it breaks my heart that I can't do anything about it. She is getting married in April. I talked with my brother and my friend, who is like an older brother to me, and they both told me to call the police because it's not allowed to arrange a marriage without the bride's permission. My friends told me to kidnap her, with her permission, of course. I haven't been in contact with her since she called me. Please, someone help me. I am in pain. For those of you wondering, I live in Belgium and I don't know what the laws are about kidnapping her with her permission. As I said, she is 16, so she is underage. Help me, please. I want to help her. What's the biggest real news story that broke on an April Fool's Day that everyone thought was actually fake? Back in the 90s, there was a great radio station in Central Florida called The Crow, WKRO, that played new rock music. And being 16 years old in Daytona Beach, it created the soundtrack of our teens. Then, on one April 1st, it started playing country music, WTF. Myself and many others thought it was an April Fool's prank. But the country music kept playing on April 2nd and 3rd and 4th. And we finally gave in to the fact that the station really did switch formats, and we lost the last great new rock station in the area. What's your true life story that nobody will believe? My dad was married 2 times before my mom. When he was with his second wife, he would travel a lot for work, which I knew. What I didn't know is that one night he came home to find his wife in bed with another man, actually walked in on them. He left the room and came back with a gun, shot the man dead and wounded his wife. He turned himself in immediately and was sent to prison. He was sentenced to 10 years in a maximum security prison. In the last year he was in prison, which was the 4th year, he got out for good behavior, and since the judge ruled it a crime of passion, he met the prison minister. The prison minister was my mom. My dad is a murderer, my mom was the minister. I am the product of a conjugal visit.
What's the most unexpected hobby or passion you've discovered through a random conversation with someone? Scranton, 2003. I used to be a belligerent alcoholic and once got thrown out of a bar for being obnoxious. The bouncer carried me out over his head. Dude was about 300 pounds and 7 feet tall. Asa stood in the curb, waiting for a friend to pick me up. Even though he was belligerently drunk, we somehow managed to have a very in-depth conversation about abstract expressionism. Turns out he was an art history major. Dude looked like Andre the fucking Giant. I'm sober now, but I think about that time guy from time to time. I hope I found a cool job at the museum or something. What's the most unexplainable thing that has happened to you? This doesn't exactly rise to an X-Files case, but I have no idea how I go home from a bar one night. I was living on my own and went out with some childhood friends and my brother. The next thing I remember was waking up in my childhood bedroom in my parents' house. My brother and friends were freaking out because they had no idea what happened to me. They didn't really understand what happened. They said I had TW or maybe 3 drinks that got me really drunk, then started making plans to leave when I disappeared. I drove to the bar that night, so they went outside to see if my car was still there, which it was. My parents said for guys they had never seen carried me to Theodore, then helped take me upstairs. My parents knew the people I went out with, including my brother. These were different people. About an hour after I woke up at my parents' house, I got a message from one of the bartenders there I was friendly with. She told me she thought I was drugged. She said I had like 2 or maybe 3 drinks when I suddenly looked like I was blackout drunk. The next thing she knew, for guys she didn't know were helping me out the door. The crazy part though was the bar and my apartment was a solid for 5 minutes from my parents' house. I just have no idea what happened. I have no idea who the guys were, what if anything was given to me, why something would have been given to me, or how they even knew where my parents lived. I don't believe anything was stolen nor was injured in any way. My mom said the guys who took me to the door were normal-looking guys about my age and perfectly polite to her. In the years since that's happened, nobody has said, "Bro, you were wasted that night we took you home." I just have no idea what happened.
My parents took me out of their will, and are giving everything to my sister because of what? Recently I was helping my parents with a bit of late spring cleaning and throwing a lot of old rubbish out when I came across what I assume is the most recent copy of their will. I didn't mean to look at it, but as I was moving it, I noticed in the beneficiaries section on the front, only my sister was listed. Then, I know it was horrible of me to do, but I decided to have a read through it. Turns out, I'm not in it, at all. My sister is listed as the sole beneficiary. She will get their house, life insurance policies, savings, car, absolutely everything. They aren't rich people by any means, but due to the way property prices have risen since they bought their house in the 80s, this probably comes in total to about £500,000, or roughly $650,000. They have always had a thing with favoring my sister a bit more than me, giving her extra attention and stuff, but I've never really minded. She is a bit of a screw up, and if I'm honest, she has needed the extra attention. I'm not going to lie either. My financial situation is a lot better than my parents. I'm engaged and together. Me and my partner have no kids and make about £45,000 each, or around $60,000 a year, while my sister is a single parent of 2 children with a deadbeat baby daddy who owes no child support while earning about £16,000, or around $20,000 a year. I know that is a lot of a gap, and I would understand if they left her a greater share to help her out more, but leaving me with nothing just seems so harsh. Whilst me and my fiancé do earn more, we aren't exactly rolling in money, and even if they had only left me 20%, it would still be more than enough to help me start to buy a house. Obviously this is all hypothetical, as they are both perfectly healthy and have a long time in them, yet it just seems harsh that if they were to die tomorrow, my sister would be set whilst I would be left with nothing. Am I right to be angry about this? Should I confront them about it or not? I know it's not my money at all, but she is a terrible daughter to them. Over the years she has lied to them, stolen money from them and me, had to be bailed out, and paid fines for substance charges, and more. And she barely even finished school as well, so whilst she is financially worse off, it's only because she has made herself so. On the other hand, I visit them all the time, help them out whenever they asked, and went to university, which they had always wanted me to do. I paid for it 100% myself with no help, and it just seems like they are punishing me and rewarding her for being such a failure. They have also always had a different parenting style of letting me make my own way. If I wanted something, I was expected to do chores or get a job and pay for it. On the other hand, my parents always bought everything my sister wanted and never really expected as much from her as me. How is this fair? Update: my parents took me out of their will, and are giving everything to my sister because of what? I found out that I was an accident. Apparently after my sister, my mom had a miscarriage and they decided not to try again, and then a year later, along pops me. Because I was unplanned, they hadn't really thought through their finances, and so for about a year and a half, my dad had to work 2 jobs and has always felt that I made him miss out on my sister growing up, and that because he rarely saw me he has never really connected with me. As for my mom, the previous miscarriage had put her off from having children, and she was content with her little girl and by then and was quite happy to be done having children. I also came to find out that they are both disappointed with me. They don't like my fiancé, they don't like that I live a 40-minute drive away, and they are sad that I chose accountancy instead of doing a law degree. But most of all, they are disappointed that I am not closer to my sister, the same girl who spent most of her life bullying me, who has treated them appallingly, who stole money from them regularly until she moved out, and who I was persuaded to lend £2,000 of my savings for university to so she could clear some debts. She never even paid that back, and I had to get into a lot of debt myself to get through my final year. It's not even like I am horrible to my sister now. I love my niece and nephew and spoil them all the time, and for their sake will help her out from time to time with money for bills and food. Apparently this is why I am not in the will, and never have been, except when I was younger, when custody of me would have been given to an aunt until I was 18. They have never really seen me as their son. I was always a bit too distant and self-reliant, and apparently made it easy for them to love my sister more. I'm not down to get anything, as they don't really view me as part of the family. Me going away for 3 years to university made it worse, but it's something that they have always felt. They asked me if I felt that it was wrong. I could persuade them otherwise and they would change it somewhat. My sister would still be the main beneficiary, but I would get something from them. I just left. I was done with this family. I told them I didn't care about the money at all, and if they cannot see me as a son, then I no longer see them as parents. I tell people I'm an orphan now. I've been married for a year to my wife and I still have my V card. My wife and I got married in February of last year. We'd been dating for 4 years prior to getting married, and in that time we hadn't slept together or anything close to it. We've kissed and cuddled and things like that. All good, and I like doing that. But we've never done anything more. She told me that she was waiting for marriage, which is fine, and I was happy with that, as I have always thought that we'd get married. Fast forward to the wedding day and I am about to explode from excitement. Firstly, I'm marrying the woman of my dreams. Secondly, we finally get to have boom boom time. The wedding itself was really nice, pretty basic in a small chapel, close family only, then back to her parents' house for a meal. We then went back to my wife's house and I was ready for it, but she said she was too tired after a long day. No problem, what's one more day? I wake up the next morning and she's gone out already, no idea what time she left, and just a note on the fridge. That was almost a year ago. Every time I've tried to broach the subject, she's either too tired, upset, not in the mood, or some variation of it. She's called me obsessed with intimacy, as I was asking most days at one point, but how can I be obsessed if I've never had it? I've taken her on romantic date nights, and as soon as intimacy is mentioned she's put off because it should be spontaneous. So I tried spontaneously engaging, but she accused me of attempting to assault her if she didn't give in prior. I'm so confused. I've grown closer with one of her friends over the last few years. I'm also good friends with her younger brother, and I was out for a coffee with her during the week and she asked how the bedroom life was going, something she talks about with reference to herself, but I often deflect when she asks about my experiences. When I confessed that we had never done anything, she was really shocked. I thought, who wouldn't be shocked about a married couple where they both have their V card? But no, she was shocked because her friend, my wife, was incredibly promiscuous before she met me and has done all sorts of things with all kinds of different people. She estimates at least 29 lovers that she knows about. Update: I've been married for a year to my wife and I still have my V card. I sat down with my wife on Sunday. She spent the day at her parents' house on Saturday, which I realize now that I'm writing this, the ramifications of that. At first she was totally unreceptive. I asked that she just listen and to let me talk, then to take a few moments to consider her response. She agreed. I talked to her calmly as I was able to. I told her that I was concerned, that I wanted to love my wife in every way possible, that I married her because I loved all of her and that I wanted to know what was going on with her. I told her that I knew she had been bedroom active in the past, and I wanted to know why they were able to be with her wholly but I wasn't. This is incredibly simplified, as I talked for almost an hour, and she listened without interrupting. As I talked she started crying. She didn't sob or break down. She was quiet and tears rolled down her cheeks, and that, honestly, made something inside me break, and I began crying too. I don't cry. I haven't cried since I scuffed my knee when I was 7, as I was taught men do not cry. After I finished talking we sat and looked at each other for some time. I could see she was thinking. She just silently shook her head. At that point things nearly fell apart, as I asked if she wanted me to contact a solicitor on Monday to begin divorce proceedings. She fully broke down then. She cried so hard, sobbing, that she ended up as a ball on the floor. This shocked me. I've never seen her like that. I don't remember doing it, but I ended up on the floor cuddling her whilst she cried. And then the dam broke. She started talking. So her dad, from here on I'll call him Dave, isn't her real dad. Dave came into her life when she was 7, her bio dad exiting when she was just 5. I never knew this. I just knew him as her dad. Dave was the perfect dad for years, by her memory. He took her out for ice cream, looked after her when she was sick, spent money on her, bought her nice things, etc. You know, dad stuff. When she was 13 he began to do unspeakable intimate things to her. His excuse, apparently, was that she was a developing young woman and she was a temptation for all men. So who better than someone that loves her? As you can guess, this developed to him coming to her late at night. When she was in her later teen years he would take her out and allow his friends to have fun with her. One of these friends went around bragging about it and word got out and my wife got tarnished with a few nasty monikers that I'll let you imagine. Her friend, the one I had coffee with, heard about it, and other conquests through the grapevine. She knew my wife at the time, but they weren't really friends until college where she tried to ask my wife about it, but my wife shrugged it off. I asked how the friend knew, as it confused me somewhat. When she was about to head off to university, Dave bought a house around the corner from his for her to live in. This is the house we have been living in for the past few years. He would make regular visits to her here and keep financial control over her bank account and the fact that he owned the house. Dave wasn't happy when my wife met me, and insisted that she not sleep with me. Me being a V-card owner made that sell easier, I guess. He threatened to expose her and to kick her out of the house and cut her off. This continued until our engagement. I actually asked that man for his daughter's hand in marriage and he acted thrilled. He even gave me an expensive bottle of whiskey to celebrate. Dave promised my wife that he would end the arrangement when we got married, and even give her a parting gift by transferring the house into her name and giving her a cash present. Safe to say that didn't happen. He decided that she was too good for me. On our wedding day, he demanded neck off her and told her to come over the following day, which is where she was. He told her, whilst he was doing unspeakable things onto her, that he wouldn't tolerate another man using her. After he was done with her she left and cried all day and even thought about ending herself. When I heard that I very nearly lost it. I'm not a small guy, 6'3" and well built, and I was ready to go around and rip this thing apart. My wife stopped me and continued. Her swimming, although some think she was using it as a cover, was legit. She swims daily and it's her way of coping. The regular visits to her parents' house are for him. There was more, so much more. My heart hurts. Hell, my very soul hurts. I didn't sleep at all last night, and I have this burning anger and hatred deep down. I still love her, but my soul feels like it's been torn apart. As soon as she got it all out I contacted the police, who came to the house and took her statement. All of the stuff she said to me and more that I either don't remember or she left out to spare me. She gave names, dates, showed phone records and written evidence from emails and a secure messenger that Dave insisted she used to chat with him. Everything. He and his wife, my wife's mother, were arrested immediately. I've arranged for her to go to therapy. The first session is this week.
That's the update. It's horrible. It's a mess. I'm a mess. My wife is a mess. I'm going to be here for her. I'm going to try and set things right and do whatever I can. We're getting the F up out of this house as soon as we can. I'm looking for rentals at the moment. I have almost enough saved to put a down payment on a new house, but we'll cross that bridge when we're ready. Thanks for being here. Thanks for letting me rant. And thanks for your support.
My wife called me a wage slave and left me for someone with money. Now he's in prison for being a scammer and she's trying to come back to me. I told her not keep that same energy cause I'm up now. I, 47M, got divorced from my first wife when I was 29. We had 2 kids and my folks loved them more than anything. My ex-wife wasn't happy with the lifestyle that I could provide. I wasn't making a lot of money, but we weren't in debt or anything. We had good cars, and we had just put a down payment on our first home that we would own. Her boss was rich. He was 47, and he could provide luxuries that were out of my reach. She left me for him. I still had to pay child support, but I guess I was lucky that I didn't pay spousal support. I had to work, and I couldn't get custody. I got visitation rights, and my ex made it hard. The kids were young and she manipulated them. If I had planned to take them to a local resort for our summer vacation, she would take them to Disneyland the week before. I would always come up short. Eventually, the kids refused to spend time with me. It went to court, and I basically had to accept that I couldn't force them to see me and my parents. I met my second wife at the dog park when I was 37 and she was 24. She had a son who was about the age my son was. My parents accepted him right away. He loves them. My wife is like a daughter to them. It is what I always wanted for a life. We have 2 more kids now, 8 and 5. My stepson is about to graduate next year. So a few years ago, my dad sold his company. He is an engineer, and he had some patents that ended up being worth a fair bit of money. He paid off my house. He also made educational funds for my 3 kids. He figured the older ones were done school and hadn't bothered to visit them in years, so they didn't need anything from him. Turns out that was wrong. My ex-wife married a scam artist. He was rich, but he wasn't rich enough for the lifestyle she wanted. So he stole from his clients and then he went to jail. My oldest kids are in a lot of debt. My ex is living with her parents. She recently tried to tell me that my parents needed to be fair with all their grandchildren. I told her it was their money to spend on the people they loved and who loved them back. She said that we were punishing her kids for her mistakes. I said that both of our kids were adults and hadn't made any effort to see me or my parents in over a decade. She said I'm being an asshole for not convincing my parents to help her kids. She wanted to do it on her own. Now she can't. And she is trying to guilt me and my parents into making up for lost time financially. She's calling me a deadbeat dad because I lost contact with my kids and never tried to have them back in my life. That's just not true. I went to court, hired lawyers, paid the fees, everything I could to fight to keep them in my life. But she won, she took them away, and they chose their stepdad over me because he had more money than me. Now that their stepdad is in jail, all of his assets were seized, and they're all broke. Now they want to come back to me and play the daddy card. The emotional manipulation is so evil. I know they are my kids, but I fought for them, and they chose money over their father. I do not feel obligated to support them or give them handouts in any way, but I feel like a part of me is failing as a father. Am I the asshole for not helping them out financially? My girlfriend was oversharing all my intimate details to her friends and they laughed at me, so I dumped her and now she can't afford rent by herself and they're begging me to come back. I, 25M, moved in with my girlfriend, 24F, of 4 years 3 weeks ago. She chose the place, and although her name is on the lease, I paid half of the deposit and the first month's rent as she couldn't afford it. I also covered the first month of bills. She works part-time and has some savings, which she used to furnish the place according to her taste, despite my objections. I felt she overspent and the money could have been better allocated elsewhere. Now on to what happened. She had a few friends over on Monday when I came home. She had ordered food, and as I normally come home from work at 5, she was surprised to see me there an hour earlier. They were a little drunk, and one of her friends made strange comments at me, which I thought nothing of due to the booze, as I went to the bathroom to shower. When I came out from the shower, her other friends and sister were quoting me poetry that I had written to my girlfriend and were quite handsy. I found it odd and asked her where she had heard that. She said, "We just read your love letters to her before watching a movie." My girlfriend was laughing with them, and then her sister made a remark about how she wanted me to do her the way I do her sister because she had never felt that way. I was furious, but due to her being wasted, it was impossible to talk to her. So I just got some of my belongings really quick and left for my mother's house. On Tuesday, she called me 17 times, but I ignored all of them. She also sent many texts wanting to know why I wasn't home. On Wednesday, I told her in person how hurt I was that she shared my intimate letters with her friends and overshared about what we do in private. She said, "Relax, it was a joke, and nobody got hurt." She said the girls were impressed with me, and that's why they got a little handsy. She said once I gave her the letters, they were hers to share with whomever she pleased. So I told her that I am my own person and can make the decision not to share more of myself with her. Today, she showed up to my mother's place apologizing. She wanted me to come back and talk it out with her. I told her no, and that we were done. She wouldn't leave, so I drove to my father's place, where I am now. She kept texting me and telling me that I should be ashamed of myself for leaving her like that. She got her friends and sister to apologize to me, and they told me to quit playing games and go home now that they had apologized. I told them I was home and that as my name was not on the lease and I wasn't respected as an equal in her home, I no longer wanted to be with her. Luckily for me, I hadn't moved most of my stuff there. She kept phoning and texting, so I blocked her. Then she made a mutual male friend of ours contact me and tell me that I was being a wuss about it, so I blocked him too. Then his girlfriend texted me and told me not to blow things out of proportion. I am almost certain I did the right thing, but maybe I should talk it out with her before cutting all contact. Am I going too far by letting her take on rent all by herself? Update 1. After reading a lot of the advice here and talking it out with my family and friends, it seems it's best not to continue my relationship. I haven't contacted her directly, but I went with my brother and my friend while she went to visit her parents on a pre-booked trip. I collected my things and gave my brother the key to give to her on Friday evening. She wouldn't take it from him as she wanted me to return it. My brother told her there was zero chance of that happening because of the TikTok post she had on her account, going into more details about what was in the letters from me, including her mentioning my sister by name and some intimate accidents she had. This forced my sister to tell my mother about it, even though it brought up a lot of trauma for her. At the moment, my sister is not talking to me because she felt I shouldn't have shared that with anyone. I agree, it was wrong of me to do that, even though I was looking for emotional support from my girlfriend. My ex took down the post in hopes of getting me to meet with her. When she realized that wouldn't happen, she put up another one telling her side of the story. There were several parts, and in it, she was looking for the letters to show her followers, but I knew where she kept them and took them while I went to collect my stuff. I burnt all of them, and I won't be writing letters to any new romantic partners anytime soon. My ex's sister has been to my mother's a few times trying to get me to help out with the rent. According to my ex's reasoning, if I hadn't agreed to pay for the rent, she wouldn't have overspent on setting up her home the way she wanted. Even if she sells the stuff, she won't get the original price for it, so she feels it's my fault for making her lose money. She did contact the landlord, filmed for her TikTok viewers while she was on the phone to him, and he denied her breaking the lease without penalties. She has to pay the remainder of the months. I asked her for my deposit through my friend while he was on the loudspeaker to her so I could hear her side without having to speak, knowing full well I wouldn't get my part, but at least he tried. In turn, she called him a lot of names and hung up. Then she phoned him back and apologized because she wanted him to tell me to phone her so she could straighten out the misunderstanding, and we could get back together. She has now taken down all the posts about me. I don't know if she will upload them again once it dawns on her that we are through. She phoned my brother again to make me speak to her so she could explain, and he met her a few hours ago. He finally gave her the key as she was told either she could take it or we would return it to the landlord. He picked up a call from her about an hour after he dropped off the keys. She wanted to talk to me and to forgive her as she had seen how she made a mistake and that it wouldn't happen again. She wanted me to return the love letters, but my brother told her they were burnt. She started blowing up at him, so my brother cut her off. She phoned back more apologetic and said what she had to do to make me go back. He asked her if she would be okay with me sharing her intimate photos and clips she had sent me with my male friends. He asked her this without okaying it with me first. She said she wouldn't be okay with it, and I guess the double standard has completely turned me off as she told my brother that if you receive something through a romantic relationship, then it stays between four eyes. It's not that she doesn't understand that what she did is wrong, it's that she expects me to be okay with it, as in her mind, her feelings matter more in the relationship. She also thinks that me being taller and bigger than her shouldn't have felt threatened by her friends or sisters, as I was not really in harm's way. He then blocked her as she phoned him several times and left him crying messages, followed by some angry messages demanding to delete her intimate photos and clips. Her sister left an angry message with the friend who helped me ask for the deposit, and she threatened him that if I ever leaked her stuff, I wouldn't live to regret it. She told him to pass on the message to me that there is something she is very insecure about sharing regarding her body, and she doesn't want me to share that without her consent. Going forward, I am getting a new number as soon as possible and hoping that I make better decisions in the future. Thank you to all who helped me with good advice. Unspoken school rule cost you your reputation. When I was in high school, there was one unspoken rule that everyone seemed to follow religiously: never, under any circumstances, do a number 2 in the school bathrooms. It might seem like a trivial rule, but trust me, there was a good reason for it. It all started during my sophomore year. Our school was old, and the bathrooms had seen better days. The paint was peeling, the stalls were cramped, and the whole place had a lingering smell that was a mix of cleaning chemicals and something else I'd rather not describe. But despite the less than ideal conditions, we all managed to get by. Until that fateful day, when everything changed. It was a typical Tuesday morning, and I was rushing to get to class. I'd had a rough night, thanks to my mom's questionable choice of takeout for dinner. I knew I was pushing my luck, but the need to use the bathroom was just too strong to ignore. I quickly scanned the hallway, making sure no one was around to witness my walk of shame, and slipped into the nearest bathroom. Once inside, I chose the least disgusting stall and did the unthinkable. I broke the unspoken rule. I tried to make it as quick as possible, knowing full well that time was not on my side. I could hear the bell ringing, signaling the start of class, but I was trapped, a prisoner of my own making. Suddenly, a group of senior students entered the bathroom. They were vaping, and I could hear the sounds of their e-cigarettes crackling. They were discussing trivial topics like how thick Ashley looked in her yoga pants today and who the most attractive girls were. During the middle of their conversation, I let out a thunderous fart, followed by the unmistakable sound of a fresh turd splashing in the water. The seniors caught wind of it and exclaimed, "No way, someone's actually taking a dump in school?" They started pounding on the stall doors and tried to intimidate me. Next, they grabbed paper towels, soaked them with water, and flung them into my stall in an attempt to hit me. When the assault was over, they took out their phones and slid them under the stall door, trying to capture my humiliation on video. As the flashes from their phones went off, I felt a mix of anger and humiliation, knowing that my most vulnerable moment was being recorded. In a desperate attempt to protect my dignity, I tried kicking their phones away, but there were just too many of them. Finally, they retreated from the bathroom, laughing hysterically as they went. I could hear their footsteps fading into the distance. In that moment, I knew I was utterly screwed. From that day on, I was known as the Phantom Pooper. My reputation was forever tarnished, and my social life took a nosedive. I couldn't walk down the hall without hearing whispers and snickers. Even my best friend couldn't look me in the eye without cracking a smile. It wasn't long before the unspoken rule became a full-blown school tradition. No one wanted to suffer the same fate as me, and so, everyone avoided doing a number 2 in the school bathrooms like the plague. To all you high schoolers out there, never, ever break the unspoken rule. The parents who cheated, how did you handle the situation? My dad cheated on mom and left her to be with the homewrecker. So my little brother exposed the homewrecker at their reception. My mom is a very strong woman. My little brother and I, on the other hand, were quite devastated. We went from having a perfect family to having to switch houses every week. My mom became depressed, but she kept a strong face for our sake. She encouraged us to be at least civil with her, so we could still have dad in our lives. I wanted nothing to do with him and the homewrecker. My little brother changed. He went from being a kind and respectful kid to a kid with a mission. When he found out, his words exactly were that, "They're both going to regret this." My brother idolized my dad, but now he wanted to hurt him. I did not want any sort of relationship with the homewrecker, but my brother still wanted to have a relationship with dad. I only went for his sake. Her and dad both sat us down and apologized on how things ended up. My brother looked pissed, but he just played it cool. I could tell he was faking his attitude. I had just graduated from high school and I was scheduled to attend college the following September. I needed to get out of the toxic situation. I kept in regular contact with my mom and brother, but with dad it was minimal. Whenever he texted me I was civil, but I was not as loving as I used to be. After my first year, I went back home for the summer and lo and behold, dad and homewrecker are getting married and wanted us to be a part of it. I wasn't having any of it, but my brother encouraged me to participate because it would make dad happy before his world came crashing down. I asked him what he meant by that and all he said was that I should definitely go to the wedding. It's going to be a day to remember, were his words exactly. What could a 16-year-old do? Well, my brother proved to me that age doesn't matter. The wedding ceremony was actually nice and so was the reception. The wedding, by the looks of it, cost at least $30,000. They went all out. During the reception, they showed a PowerPoint displaying all of the happy couple good times. The entire time, my brother had the biggest grin on his face, but he wouldn't tell me why. The PowerPoint is going on and I'm dying of boredom and trying to figure out why my brother has a smile that could rival the Joker's. All of a sudden, I just heard a bunch of gasps and my brother nudged me to look up at the screen. There for 300 people to see, on a massive screen was the homewrecker sucking another man's face. It was dead quiet. People were just staring at the bride and dad just got up and left. She went after him in tears. I just looked at my brother and he winked. They had to cancel the rest of the reception. It was a sight. At home, I pulled my brother to the side and asked him if he did that. He admitted to everything. Turns out a week prior, he was out with friends at the restaurant and saw the homewrecker and a mystery man. He spied on them the whole time. He even followed them into the parking lot where he saw them kissing. He captured the whole thing on his camera and snuck it into the PowerPoint before the reception began. He then goes to say that he wanted both Dad and homewrecker to suffer. Everyone now knows that she gets around a bit. He did not want to show Dad because he wanted Dad to be at his happiest before he popped the bubble. Plus there was the bonus that both of them spent a lot of money on their wedding, only to have it ruined in the most humiliating way possible. That's when I knew my brother was a savage. All of this happened last month. Mom is doing better. She's in therapy, and when she found out what happened, she burst out laughing. However, she doesn't know who is responsible and she never will. The homewrecker doesn't want an annulment, but Dad doesn't want anything to do with her. He kicked her out of his house. We watched from a safe distance. It's the most messed up thing your parents have done to you. My mom kicked me out 2 years ago in favor of her boyfriend who bullied me in high school. My dad passed away when I was only 1. It's been me and my mom ever since. As you can guess, my mom and I were very close. When I was a sophomore in high school, my mom got a part-time job as a gym teacher at my school. I supported her when she asked if I would be comfortable with it. It was extremely uncomfortable when guys would make comments on my mom's appearance. It also gave ammo to Brad, who bullied me in high school. He would make inappropriate comments about her towards me. Brad was a year ahead of me, so I thought I was finally rid of him after he graduated. I was wrong. When I became a senior, my mom started going out very often. Initially, I was happy for her because I wanted her to find someone nice. However, it came to a point where we barely got any time together. To be frank, I thought she was avoiding me. This was because whenever I tried to make plans with her, she had already made plans before. I sort of kept it to myself because I didn't want to come off needy. I didn't complain when she missed my birthday because she was out all night. When she tried to apologize the next day, I told her it was okay. After 6 months of this behavior, I decided to take action. I asked my mom if we could have dinner together, just the two of us. She said she was too busy. I got fed up and told her to stop ignoring me. She said that she wasn't ignoring me but that she had a life to live. That really hurt me a lot. Out of anger, I started to ignore her for a few days. After those days passed, she finally apologized to me. However, she said she needed to talk to me about something important. She wanted to introduce me to her boyfriend at dinner. She didn't sound excited about it. It sounds like she almost dreaded it. When the door rang, my mom opened it up and introduced the guy to me. I was in extreme shock. It was Brad. I screamed at my mom, asking her what he was doing here. Brad came forward to acknowledge that this situation was uncomfortable, but he's sorry for how he treated me in school and that he really cares about my mom. My mom asked us to sit and let her explain how this all happened. I remember screaming, "I don't give a damn about your explanation. You tossed me aside for this piece of crap. You're a pathetic excuse of a mother." My mom then defended him and said, "Don't you dare call him that." She then said she tried to accommodate everyone in this tough situation by keeping the relationship away from me. She then said, "Like it or not, Brad is here to stay. If you don't like it, you're more than welcome to leave." I packed my bags right there and then. I called my grandma and told her about the whole situation. She drove to my house and confronted my mom. After a shouting match between them, I left with my grandma. My mom tried calling me several weeks after, but I blocked her. She tried to visit me, but I called the cops on her. After that, she sort of gave up. It had been 2 years since I'd heard from my mom. Then I got a call from her yesterday. She said it's urgent and we needed to meet up. I didn't know if I should go, but curiosity got the best of me. There was also a burning desire to unload on her. I finally texted back my mom this morning asking where we should meet. She said we could meet for lunch at the restaurant at 12 p.m. I didn't have any class today, so I was good to go. When I arrived at the restaurant, I heard some woman scream my name. It was my mom, who I haven't seen for 2 years. She asked how I was and said she would hug me, but she knew I would reject it. Her voice was shaking when she asked me to follow her to her table. Unsurprisingly, Brad was sitting there. He didn't even look me in the eye as we sat down. He just nodded his head as if to simply acknowledge my arrival. As my mom sat down, she started shooting out multiple questions. "What you've been up to? Are you in school? How's it going?" I got annoyed and told her, "Stop wasting my time with these questions. What do you want from me?" She responded, "Well, before we tell you, can we explain how all of this happened?" I said sure. She explained that they never interacted with each other when Brad was in school. Brad only knew about her because his friends would take pictures of her before gym class started and share them with everyone. It was Brad who approached her at a bar. She didn't recognize him. So he told her he went to the high school she works at and graduated recently. My mom was lonely and jokingly told him she wouldn't tell anyone that he wasn't 21 as long as he hung out with her. They exchanged numbers and made a promise to hang out with each other. She said she knew that I wouldn't be comfortable with her seeing a peer of mine. So she kept it a secret and convinced herself it was going to be a short and casual relationship. Eventually, the relationship got serious. When she was hanging out at his house, she asked him about introducing him to me. He told her it wasn't a good idea. She responded by saying I'd get over the age gap relationship. He was forced to come clean about the relationship I had with him in high school. That's when my mom started tearing up and her voice was shaking. She said she was in shock about what she had done. She couldn't sleep at night because of the guilt. She couldn't even look at me without feeling immense guilt. She had him blocked on her phone. After a week, he sent her a message on Facebook to at least meet him once. She obliged. He showed up with roses and begged for forgiveness. He even said he'll apologize to me in person and that he's a changed person. She took him back. The next was the day she invited him to dinner. My mom burst into tears and begged me to forgive her for hurting me. She then said these 2 years have been painful for her. Finally, Brad spoke and admitted, she misses you like crazy dude. She still needs you in her life. My mom then said, I am sorry for being an awful mother. We want to make it up to you. We're moving to California and we want you to come with us. We will foot the bill for your education and everything else. You won't have to work at all. You'll have a permanent place in our home. I don't know what the hell came to me, but I started laughing like crazy. Like a madman. It was the most ridiculous proposition. Now, this part is what makes me the monster. This is what I really came there for. After I calmed down. This is what I said to her. Mom, you must be a delusional piece of crap if you think I'll ever forgive you. You are dead to me for good. The only acknowledgement you'll get from me is me pissing on your grave when you pass away. Then she was hysterically crying. I got up from the table and left the restaurant. Only a minute after walking to the parking lot, I hear my mom screaming at Brad to stop following me. I really wanted this confrontation. The moment he grabbed my shirt, I turned around and sucker punched him in the face. He dropped on the road with his mouth bleeding. My mom came to physically restrain him from hurting me until he calmed down. I told them, this is what I think about your proposal. It's been 4 hours now since the incident. I know deep down I should be ashamed of myself. But I feel amazing inside. I don't know if adrenaline can last that long. It feels like I took my power back.
Follow for more.